My name is Rex Jarrett. I am the Director of Professional Programs here at UMBC. And if you're here for the University of Maryland, Baltimore County Pause and Pivot webinar series for impacted federal workers and government contractors, you are in the right place. So if you take a look at the screen, you will see we have some updates for our August events. Probably wondering, it's June. What happened in July? Well, the summer. We are a university, and a lot of our faculty take that time to kind of, decompress and get ready for the next school year. We also want to give you all some opportunities and time to spend it with your families and loved ones. But after the July or summer break, we will be back in fall. So in this August, we will return on the 6th for another virtual session called First Impressions Matter, led by Batul Siddiq, a founder of BHS Image Consulting. And then we'll have our first on-campus event for the Pause and Pivot webinar series, or I guess Pause and Pivot series, on August 13th. On Wednesday, August 13th, 4 to 6 p.m. We'll be in person, the University Center, in room 310. We'll send more information about that. Please feel free to scan the QR code on the screen or click the URL link in the chat. So those are all my updates. I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Kate Morris, who's going to lead today's session. And again, thank you all for being here.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So glad to see you all today. My name is Katie Morris. I'm with UMBC's social work program. I'm also a clinical social worker licensed here in Maryland. And today we're going to be talking about remaining grounded in times of change and this idea of reimagining you. So I'm excited to have you all here with us. All right, sorry, I feel like I need to move the little WebEx screen here. So I thought we could take a pause here, and actually, Rex, I should have asked if we do have the chat box available, and if I can see that, but yes, I can. So it looks like I just thought maybe we could just take a moment to just pop in the chat, like, how are we feeling? Any feelings we want to put in there, just to kind of take a moment to check in. I know it is super hot out there. I was in between meetings today in different buildings, and it is a warm one. So just thought we'd get some feelings in the room on how we're feeling today. Yeah, so I'm seeing optimistic, exhausted, confused, anxious, overwhelmed. Yeah, and that's actually why we're here today, is that I thought that's how we might be feeling and wanted to take it and just recognize that. Recognize that these feelings are okay to have. These are kind of where we should be. I think when we think about, oops, sorry, I'm changing too quickly. When we think about making a change in our lives, we usually plan for it, right? We call that plan change. We contemplate the idea like, hey, I'm thinking about going back to school, or I'm thinking about getting a new job, or, I'm thinking I'm ready for, a new relationship. And then we contemplate about what we're going to do about that, thinking it as a positive thing that you want to make a change to, or a concern you have. I'm going to eat healthier. I know I keep saying I'm going to eat less sugar. And so getting ready to make that change, preparing ourselves, for me, it'd be getting rid of all the candy in the house and trying not to buy more. And then, of course, taking that, making that change, taking that action, committing to it and maintaining it. And I think perhaps why some of the feelings we're having right now is that these are unexpected changes, right? What a lot of you are experiencing is something you didn't choose. This just happened to you. And I think unexpected changes can lead to a lot of feelings and responses to that. And I'm just kind of acknowledging that this could be some of the things that we're feeling and or thinking about. So I saw, I was kind of guessing, and certainly through the literature, we know that, right, with unexpected changes, all of what you have noted are normal for us. And I think, acknowledging that part and just giving ourselves grace to feel that, I think, is really important in this moment. And so that idea of feeling stressed, depressed, anxious, overwhelmed, frustration, maybe loss of our sense of identity. A lot of us are connecting with coworkers or community, even on maybe our bad days at work, we still have that sense of community and connection with others. And so that it can feel a loss of that if we're not there. That idea of frustration, shame, anger, loss of purpose, and certainly our financial concerns. And so again, I want to acknowledge that these are all things that, if we look at any of the literature on employment and employment changes or unemployment, this is what we're seeing. So I want you to know you're not alone in that. I think that's a big part of almost us feeling better is that thinking I'm the only one this is happening to, I'm the only one who's feeling that way. And I just want to acknowledge that that is not the case. So what do we kind of do with those feelings? One thing, again, as a social worker who spent a lot of my time working with mental health and mental wellness, definitely taking care of you. So this idea of all the activities that you do that are part of taking care of you. So I've just listed some. If there's things that I've missed, please feel free to add to the chat. I tried to come up with as many things that I do or try to do. And I recognize that some of these things also, due to our financial changes, might not be always possible, right? I haven't been to the movie theaters in a bit, but certainly the last time I took my kids there, that's a big expense, right? So going to the movies might not be something, well, that was something you enjoyed, that's something you're thinking about financially piece. So how you can sometimes still do that and treat yourself, but also recognizing that financial implication. But there are a lot of things here that don't cost, right? So our hikes and walking and reading and getting some sleep and exercise are certainly important things. And I guess I would add to all of this is connecting with people, staying connected with your family and friends. I think oftentimes when we see people who are hurting or who are having a challenge, perhaps you kind of get a flood of responses like, oh, I'm so sorry, and then nothing, right? So despite that, try to stay connected with the people that kind of bring you peace, bring you a sense of enjoyment, bring you kind of what you need in that moment. Because again, I think that's something for you still to feel connected with that. We do know that in order to take care of others or in order to do things, we do need to be doing things to take care of ourselves. So again, I'm just reminding us all to continue to take care of ourselves. I know for me personally, this is probably the hardest thing for me to sometimes do as a working parent. And I know all of you are, have been employed and know that balancing, whether you have your own family or you're part of a family or friend system, there's a lot to do. And so sometimes we kind of let ourselves go. And perhaps this is the moment where you can recenter on that. You can take a pause and be like, hey, it's okay to refocus on me right now. Because of the situation I'm in, I can turn back to this and do some of these things for me that maybe you haven't had a chance to do in a bit. So if anyone's old enough to remember Friends, I pulled this pivot up. So I do think, and again, looking at our literature, what we're seeing is that yes, job placement is distressing. It causes all of the emotions that we just discussed. And also, it can lead to improved well-being because it enhances kind of our openness and our tendency to search for new things. I think we get so caught up in our everyday that we don't take a moment to maybe think about what that next step was, or think about that new opportunity, or think about that degree that was like, oh, I don't have time right now. And so what we're seeing in the literature, and maybe you might be feeling too, is that these disruptive events can result in this idea of soul searching and leading to purpose or more oriented or more meaningful lives. And I guess I'm just suggesting that perhaps using this, again, feeling all those emotions is okay, but using this as an opportunity to see, what do you want to do? What is next for you? And so we do know that you are resilient people, right? You have experienced certainly different challenges up until this point in your personal and career life. And yet you still had the ability to adapt and thrive. And so thinking about how you can continue to use your own resilience, your own system, your own self to continue to move forward. Again, we've talked about investing in your well-being. We've talked about keeping in connection with your support system. But I guess I'd like to add seeking out opportunities. The fact that you're in this room, you're already thinking, you're already doing that point right there, right? You are already thinking about, okay, what else can I do here? What else am I thinking about? And also providing a sense of purpose and connection for yourself. The pivot piece and the reimagining piece, I guess that's what I'm kind of proposing that we start to think about today. And today's session isn't meant for us to answer all of these questions, but I guess I just want to use this as a point for you to maybe journal on or reflect on in your own time. So I thought we could, I wanted to pose some of these questions. Some of them are kind of worded in different ways, but driving at the same thing. But I often find when I'm talking to others that sometimes the way we ask the questions can kind of get us to dig a little bit deeper. So now really might be an opportunity for you to make a change, to explore something that you hadn't really thought about, or that you had thought about, but again, never really thought you had the time or the ability to think through. So I just ask us to reflect on some of these. And I don't know if people feel comfortable putting any responses in the chat or any ideas in the chat. I welcome that if you want to use that space. But thinking about what do I value? What's important to me? Where do I find joy? What is something that brings me joy? What does that look like? Is it something that I do, with my family, or that I do on a volunteer basis, or that I do in my community or with my church or temple, or place that I practice my spirituality? Is there something in there? What can I kind of do with that? How can I use my skills? Let me go into that question next. So I think this idea of reassessing what we're good at. What are some things, again, that I value and that bring me joy? Spending some time thinking about those questions. And what then does that maybe look like? I think this idea of using our skills differently is really important. So many of you have such varied and broad and in-depth skill set from both your lived and work experience. And maybe you've only kind of seen it being used or applied one way. And I guess what I'm challenging us to do today is how can we think about that differently? What might that look like for me? I think a lot of us are practicing different skill sets and ideas. And so how could we maybe think about applying that in a new avenue, in a new industry, where maybe you thought about going before, but again, didn't have time to think about? Thinking about where do you want to be? What do you want to do? And I think we should be able to dream. It's okay to write down a list of places we've always wanted to work, right? I'm definitely at that more than the midpoint of my career. And I still say to my students, when I grow up, this is what I want to do. If I'm realizing that when I grow up, years are starting to shrink. But this is an opportunity to think about that. Like, what else have I thought about doing? I think for me, and again, I work with a lot of students, so I'll reflect on that, but that concept is the same for all of us. I think a lot of people are thinking about what do they personally value, and how that personal sense of what they bring and what they value and how that can connect to their future work. And so that's something, again, for us, maybe just to reflect on, what do I see? What do I value? For me, that's what kind of drove me into social work. And so I'll just give an example for myself, that I always felt like I valued my community and my family. And for me, my kind of experience through college taught me this idea of service and giving back in my community. And so that personal sense of what I was doing, and the actions I take kind of led to this career that I didn't realize what it was at the time. I didn't identify it as social work until I had already completed my bachelor's degree and then met several social workers. But I guess I'm just encouraging you to think about, what is it that you kind of value? What is it that you see yourself wanting to invest in? And again, you have all this skills and knowledge that I think you can carry with you, and just maybe think about using that differently. I'll take a pause there. I don't know if you all want to write some of these questions down. We'll definitely be giving you the slides in a second, or at the end of this. But if there's any, I'll certainly take any questions or comments so far too. I can continue to kind of come up with examples as well, whatever you all think might be helpful. While we see if there's any comments or questions on that, I thought this actually came out of my dissertation work, this idea of transfiguration. And so John O'Donohue wrote this book on Ankara, which means soul friend. And I think that perhaps this kind of hits on what we're talking about here today. So this art of transfiguration, it is far more creative to work with the idea of mindfulness rather than the idea of will. So again, thinking about how mindfulness basically is a lot harder than to kind of make us do something with our own will. And so he shares, too often people try to change their lives by using the will as a kind of hammer to beat their life into proper shape. The intellect identifies the goal of the program, and the will accordingly forces the life into that shape. If you work with a different rhythm, you will come easily and naturally home to yourself. Your soul knows the geography of your destiny. Your soul alone has the map of your future. Therefore, you can trust this indirect, oblique side of yourself. If you do, it will take you where you need to go, but more importantly, it will teach you the kindness of rhythm in your journey. His work with this on Ankara, I think, had really powerful chapters if you want to check out the book. But I thought this kind of section really fit in with what we're talking about today. I think so many times we're kind of told what to do, told what careers we should do, or encouraged, by, perhaps I'm speaking from my own experience from my family about what expectations are for, work or career. And intellectually, I can see that, and we kind of force ourselves into that. And what O'Donohue is talking about is that we need to maybe sometimes step back from that. What is it that is inside us that we're good at? And what is it that we can trust that in ourselves and build on that? So I was recently talking to someone who's always noted a passion for cooking and baking, and I bake a lot, so we had shared that. She has her master's degree in social work and working as a social worker in the community. And she told me that she recently went back to school to get her culinary degree. And I thought, oh, wow. And she's like, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I've always been passionate about it. And that just reminds me that, here she's achieve this higher degree, and she's gone back to culinary school because that's really where her passion is. This idea of baking and cooking and doing that idea of cooking and baking for others, I guess, is something she's passionate about. So I share that because I think sometimes, we're told, well, what are you going to do with that? You already have a master's degree. Why would you go get a culinary, certificate or degree now, right? But again, it's following, not using that hammer to kind of force ourselves into a certain shape, but kind of using our mindfulness. What is it that we're passionate and most interested in, and following that for our destiny, and how that can lead us to an opportunity that perhaps we hadn't considered, or hadn't really maybe had the time to fully develop before. So as she noted, she's not really sure where she's going with this. She said, I think she hadn't finished the certificate or the culinary degree yet, but she was getting close. So she's like, I'm not sure where that's going to go. But her openness to that, to thinking about what could be next, was really powerful. So I'll just pause there because I think with this quote here, but again, I think for many of us, we may have thought about an idea for a while, but it always seemed too far-fetched, or too out there, or too impossible, or we were too busy. And I guess I'm just suggesting that perhaps maybe now's the time when you could explore some of those ideas, some of those things that you've always thought about, but never had the time to ruminate over and more fully develop to turn it into something that could be your future career and work. I'll pause again if there's any comments or questions. I'm happy to take. And here, I'm also wanting to make sure that I share with you all. Here are some, and again, you'll receive this link when we're done with today's session. But here is a link to local providers in the area. Again, I talked about how important it is to take care of ourselves. If you do feel like you need to connect with someone, this is hopefully a robust list for you all if you're looking for someone to talk to for counseling or support services. Christine Routzman, our Director of Career Centers, had done a Paws and Pivot series a couple weeks ago. And so this is, there's a recording to that if you want to check that out, because I thought that connected to what we're talking about. Here is our opportunity for feedback, which I'll come back to in a second. Oh, I felt like there was one more link. Maybe it was back here. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. I think the providers are also late. Where? I feel like I'm missing a slide, Rex. I might need to go back and find that. I had one other link and I feel like I'm missing it. I had one other link. I might have to pause my screen slide here and find that, where I had all the resources of different links in the county I had collected from our different career folks that I thought I would share with you as well. I don't see it here, so I either misplaced. It's somewhere stuck in the slide system, which is where I was trying to go. So I'll definitely make sure Rex has the updated slide deck, because there is a final slide that has a whole bunch of resources and links. And again, I received some of these opportunities and connections from some of my career colleagues in the county. And so I will definitely share that with you all as well when we share the final slideshow with you. All right, I welcome any other comments or questions, or if you just want to take a moment to take the survey, I have also posted that on our last screenshot here. Yeah, so Rex is asking, how do you personally respond to unexpected change versus planned change? Yeah, that's a great question. And I think part of it is that, again, giving ourselves grace to know that the unexpected change we all want plan change. We all want to plan for things. And when it happens unexpectedly, allowing ourselves to have all the feelings, whatever those may be. And we listed some of them on the previous slide, right? With the frustration, the anger, the disappointment, the overwhelming, all of those things. And then I think going forward from there, now we can take that unexpected change and turn it into more of a planned change. Okay, now I'm in this situation. What am I going to do about it? What are the steps that I'm going to take? I think what I encourage people to do is not to just force themselves to that action phase. Allow yourself to kind of almost contemplate. We talked about that pre-contemplation and the contemplation phases of a change, of a plan change, is to kind of think about it. Am I ready for this? Am I not ready for this? You kind of forced into a change. You're not able to kind of, think about that, make that plan, but you can still do that. Am I ready for this? I'm not ready for this, but it's okay if I'm feeling all this. So spend time with those feelings and then allow yourself to move towards that action and maintenance part of the plan change. And I think for me, that has really what has been helped me personally is to, let myself kind of feel all the crap that I was feeling and to be in that moment and to really take the support from my community, from my family when I needed it. And then also think about, where do I really want to go from here? What do I want to do now that I'm in this moment and kind of now moving towards this direction? Where do I want to go? And so I think that is one thing that has kind of worked for me. But thank you for that question. Yes, which self-care strategies have been most useful for me? So I actually, I'll go back a couple slides. I tend to be a person who definitely finds the walk and the exercises most helpful for me personally. I'm also a really big reader of books and binger of shows. Personally, I find that idea of escaping really helpful. Sometimes I think it can just feel really overwhelming in our world, and getting into a good book or a good show is a good way to kind of escape our own little emotional, whatever we're feeling and experiencing. So for me, that's one thing that I really enjoy. Again, I recognize that if we're thinking about cost saving factors, so many streaming services are out there and they all cost a lot if you add it all up. So I recognize that could be something to be thinking about with your own budgets. I have to say too, I'm a big user of the library. I don't know if anyone has used this, but the Libby app is free in Maryland. If you Libby, you download the app and you put in your library card, and there are hundreds of electronic books that you can get for free. So there's a cost savings factor. You don't have to use the Audible or the other systems that you have to pay for to get books. So I really do love that Libby app. I've read some really great books this summer. Yeah, thank you, Rex, for putting that in the chat. That Libby app is fantastic.
All right. Well, we are at time. I think Dr. Morris, audio might not be picking me up, but for those of you who are in attendance, thank you so much for being here this afternoon. We will send out an email with these slides in addition to a recording of today's session in case you want to revisit any of the topics that have been mentioned. We really appreciate all of you taking the time to fill out that survey link. It lets us know how these events are going, what subject matters you'd like to see covered in the future. Please, please, please make sure to go to the UMBC Paws Pivot website, which will also be linked in the email, to find out more information about our upcoming on-campus event, Wednesday, August 13th. All right. With that said, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Dr. Morris, for your time, and everyone have a fantastic rest of your day.